Welcome to the Coach Podcast with Coach Keren Eldad. Settle in. We're about to make you feel really good.
If we command our wealth, we shall be rich and free. If our wealth commands us, we are poor indeed. Martin Luther King. Welcome back to the Coach Podcast, where we dive deep into the fears and challenges that hold overachievers back and explore ways to overcome them for a more fulfilling life. I'm your coach, Coach Keren Eldad, and today we're going to be, I think, exploring a very poignant topic, and that is the terror so many superstars have, and I'm talking even people whose net worth is 9 figures, that they might lose the money at any moment, or that at any given time the other shoe will drop and the tap is going to shut off. This series in its entirety is dedicated to the thoughts with which overachievers grapple that they find hard to articulate, but should. Having coached thousands of people who fit a high performance profile by any measure over my decade of work as an executive coach, I've found that beneath the surface or facade, even overachievers, maybe especially overachievers, often grapple with feelings of emptiness, inadequacy, unmet expectations, and dissatisfaction. And yeah, they worry that their luck's going to run out too. If you haven't yet, go back and listen to the first few episodes in this series, and if you have checked those out already, let's get right to the money. Before diving in, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, this podcast is a prelude and companion to my book, Gilded, Breaking Free from the Cage of Ambition, Perfectionism, and the Relentless Pursuit of More. Get yourself a copy right now on www.breakfreewithgilded.com. Okay, let's get to the episode. Sometimes it can be tempting to think that if you had a certain amount of money, your worries would go away. Alas, many who are tempted to think this way without doing real and constant inner work will find that as their wealth increases, so too does the number that is needed to feel secure, and therefore, so will increase the stress around losing money. In a world where many people dream of financial security, and that's what they equate security with, there exists a paradoxical fear among the wealthy, and that is the fear of loss. Imagine having $20 million, but constantly feeling a need to earn more. Many of my clients actually feel this way, and it keeps them awake at night. Alas, I can still relate, at least sometimes. Even though I do not at this moment have anywhere near $20 million, I have a fraction of that. And even though I do the work constantly, the inner work on myself, sometimes when things get shaky, and in all businesses, sales go up and down and get shaky, I still fall into worry myself. Luckily, I know what to do, and it doesn't last long. This episode is going to help you unpack why this still has you in a chokehold and how you too can make it go away faster so that you can get back to enjoying those riches. Because if you don't, then really, what's the point? I bet you're nodding. Great. So first, let's start with why this can seem, especially to those who are not as successful as you, to be a paradox. Why would you still worry about money? Doesn't wealth automatically bring peace of mind? While research shows that this is true when moving up from low levels of income, the boost to security and happiness tends to increase at a slow pace as your net worth grows. If you're listening, and you know this already, but I thought I'd share this, the research backs this up. The reason comes down to the psychology of the wealthy, the roots of these fears, the impact of loss aversion, and how childhood and life experiences have shaped your relationships with money. I am going to briefly unpack some of these factors for us, and then I'm going to walk you through one tool to begin to really commit to swimming upward when it comes to money, not just because I want you to enjoy being successful, but also because suffering in this area is unnecessary and makes us tend to be a little over-controlling of our environment and of other people. So if you agree and you're really ready to be done with this, or at least out of prolonged suffering, listen in. Okay, so the first problem is the scarcity mindset. You know about it. You heard me talk about this in the first episode of this season, and that is the worldview of dog eat dog, everyone's in competition, we have limited resources kind of situation. In today's episode, I want to bring it up at the start to state that this persistent way of thinking and of seeing the world is what haunts individuals at all levels, regardless of wealth. To refresh your memory, there are 2 primary worldviews: abundance and scarcity. These two worldviews inform absolutely everything we do. They dictate how we spend our time and our money. They inform how we make decisions, how we interact with people, and how we choose not to interact with people. In the abundance worldview, there is rest, beauty, creativity, and enough. In the scarcity worldview, there can never be any of those things. There is competition, fear, isolation, accumulation, and therefore never enough. The economic system of abundance is based on receiving and giving. The economic system of scarcity is about production and acquisition. It's about conquest. If we don't stop and think about what worldview we're living from, primarily, as I suggested you do back in the first episode, we are naturally going to gravitate always and forever towards scarcity. There's never going to be enough. There never will be. Which explains why the more wealth you accumulate, if you're still in this mindset, the more dissatisfied you become. So if you're baffled, don't be baffled anymore. Because to summarize, the scarcity mindset is characterized by a subconscious belief that you have a limited amount of resources on this planet and are therefore you're unable to provide for yourself or for others without taking from others or without being aggressive about it. As a result of the scarcity mindset, you will start not only to worry about losing money, but about losing the means by which you get money. Irrelevance. Turning your thoughts to a level of anxiety that no amount of money can ever ease. If you find yourself wandering over here every time you see numbers you do not like on your balance sheet, you will start to worry about how much time you have left in your career. And what if something happens? And what if you lose your luster or fame? And what if the clients turn on you? This is where the fear of losing money turns into and easily merges with the other superstar hidden real thought, which is the fear of irrelevance, of insignificance, of being forgotten. It is the fear of unworthiness, of unlovability and loneliness too. It's the fear of being seen as an inept or unuseful person. It triggers back to the feelings of being abandoned or being poor or being unrecognized. Paradoxically, the pursuit of wealth often stems from a desire to bury these fears. Alas, to overcome them, like I said in the second episode, you cannot bury them. You have to feel them. You have to inquire them. You have to sit with their realness. And that brings me to the tool that's going to get us started here. But if this is hitting home, it's important that you address this. Okay, so here's the second thing to explore. Loss aversion, before imparting the tool. The fear of losing it all is deeply rooted in loss aversion, which is closely related to and immediately follows a scarcity worldview or a scarcity mindset, as a fear of loss makes very little sense with an abundance mindset. Loss aversion is a psychological phenomenon in turn observed and first coined by psychologists Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman. It refers to the tendency of individuals to feel the pain of losing something more acutely than the joy of gaining the same thing. Thus, as I like to say, while many overachievers think that they're playing to win, they're not playing to win. They're actually playing not to lose. Our minds hate the possibility of losing so much that we're not willing to wager much, which in essence means that even when you're putting your best foot forward, most of the time, you're just covering your ass. You're not playing to win. You're playing not to lose. Very different things. This emotional response is hardwired into the human psyche and significantly influences decision-making, as I noted Yuval Noah Harari said in the second episode of this series. Now, this is particularly true in financial matters. It even factors in the first scene of my favorite movie, Crazy Rich Asians. Feel free to check out that movie. For the very wealthy, loss aversion is not merely a theoretical concept or a numbers on a balance sheet situation. It's a visceral experience that can evoke profound anxiety and profound distress. Like they say, more money, more problems. Because in many cases, when you're very successful, your success or even your financial status becomes intertwined with your identity, with status. And that's when it gets all tangled up with your sense of self-worth, which is what causes you pain. Understand this. The reason money still has such a stronghold on you is because now that you're successful, the thought of losing the money will occur as a threat to your core being. And just like that, regular loss aversion gets to be loss aversion on steroids. It's the kind that starts to twist and turn and can even turn into foul play. For example, I'm not accusing you of this, but I'm just sharing a poignant story. For example, Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff started his pyramid scheme only after he lost $30,000, an investment of his investors' money in a legitimate business. He was so scared of losing face by telling them that he'd lost those $30,000 that he literally turned to fraud and crime. If you haven't watched it, I recommend watching the incredible four-part documentary Madoff, the Monster of Wall Street on Netflix, because this is a mind-blowing thing. And then I want you to imagine that same someone with $20 million in assets. To those of us who don't have 20 million, if they lose 10 million, it looks like they still live and live really well. But to them, the thought of losing 10 million might not just be a reduction in wealth, it could be perceived as a blow to their social standing, a dent in their self-esteem, and a threat to the respect they have worked so hard to command. The fear, therefore, is not just of financial loss, it's of losing the lifestyle, the influence, the recognition, the status. This emotional response is further intensified by the public scrutiny that often comes with great wealth or with any degree of great success. Sometimes you even worry about how a spouse would look at you if the money dwindled. This is tragic. The fear of being judged, ridiculed, or pitied in the event of financial setbacks can be paralyzing. As a result, the very wealthy may find themselves trapped, like that poor Brandon Miller that we talked about in episode 1, in a struggle between the desire to protect their wealth or facade and the fear that the psychological toll the potential losses might inflict upon them. And guess what? This is what's going to make you lose the money. I have a lot to say about this, but I'm going to leave that for coaching. For now, going back to the subject, loss aversion gets exacerbated the higher many people go. And loss aversion can also be made worse by the perception that financial success is a reflection of competence or of that superiority that we talked about in episode 3, especially if you went from financially struggling to successful. Because if you did, and you used your success after that in order to assert a validation to your worth, then losing money again and going back to financial struggle will be a devastating blow to your self-esteem. If this is happening to you right now, it is the reason for indecision, inaction, procrastination, internal resistance, apathy, wrong decisions, anxiety, lying, and depression. And if you do not do something about this, seeking not just the advice I will share, but professional help, it will lead to financial drift. Addressing loss aversion requires more than just financial advice. It demands a nuanced understanding of the emotional landscape that accompanies wealth, and this really does matter at any level of wealth. Lastly, though I am not a psychologist, I do know from heaps of research and thousands of hours in coaching sessions that money issues are trauma, meaning that our way of thinking about money has been mostly shaped by childhood and life experiences and can therefore, since it's been hanging around in our life for so long, continue to be a driving force behind your worry, even after making lots of money. And yes, even with the advantages of doing the inner work in coaching. Those who grew up in financially unstable environments, which I think is most of us to an extent, might have developed a heightened aversion to loss and have really a rough time shaking that aversion or the stress around money, driving them to accumulate wealth as a means of trying to protect themselves, and also making them kind of resistant to anything but a trained, super astute coach watching them and catching them on these thoughts. On the other hand, individuals who experience abundance, grew up rich, and yeah, those people do exist, they may have a completely different worldview of money. But even there, you should know a scarcity mindset can manifest itself. And when it does, it will usually show up in a more cavalier attitude, a very spendy attitude towards money, and that contributes to other financial challenges. In sum, what I'm saying here today is it's not your money superstar, it's your beliefs, and making more money does not change this. The solution is to face and even understand the deep-seated fears and psychological underpinnings of your wealth. To help alleviate this, just open your eyes. A holistic approach will be needed to take this further, but you are already being encouraged to a shift in mindset from scarcity to abundance that will foster a connection beyond monetary transactions within yourself and will help you to promote your self-worth as independent of financial standing. And these are the essential steps that you have to take in order to cross this chasm. These are many of the things I impart in coaching, especially around the money mindset or wealth consciousness. But additionally, cultivating a sense of purpose beyond wealth accumulation, that can contribute to a more fulfilled life and counterbalance that fear of irrelevance that comes along with this. This is going to help you to really live in a transcendence of the fear and live more stress-free. And if you're ready to be stress-free, then it's absolutely a course you want to take. Before I send you off, here's the tool I promised you today, and it's a big tool, a huge leg up with which to start shifting your money mindset and stop being afraid of the other shoe dropping and of losing all of your wealth. It's to read wealth consciousness books. These are books that help you identify the false beliefs that you have around money, mind trash that is running your psyche ragged, and it helps you to begin to correct course. My favorite is You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. But if you head over to my YouTube channel, you are also going to find at least 5 videos in which I share top 5 books in this arena so that you can grab any other wealth consciousness book, all of them game changers. I also, of course, recommend my book Gilded so that you can take the time to transform yourself inside out for not just wealth, but lasting, meaningful connection to self that has nothing to do with how much money you have. For a deeper shift around this, there's nothing like coaching, like I said. So you've likely been churning in garbage beliefs around money for a very, very long time. And I want you to know that within a few minutes, you'll register a completely different tone around them, and you will start to stand a far better chance of getting past them. And if you're ready to talk to me personally about this, about your goals, about your dreams, about your situation, please go to calendly.com/Keren Eldad, KerenEldad, and book yourself a consultation. Let's talk about it. Of course, you can still go deeper into this work yourself by reading the book Gilded. Again, go to breakfreewithgilded.com for your copy today. Until I see you in consultation, until you enjoy the book, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, the tool, and the exercise I've served that has hopefully served you well. Thank you for listening. Thank you for feeling like you're not alone on this journey and you're not crazy. You're not. If you love today's show, please take the time to subscribe to the Coach Podcast and leave us a 5-star review. I'm going to see you in the next episode of this series.
Thanks for listening to the Coach Podcast.